Good all, welcome back to a sunny South Africa, and this is South African Prepper. So for today's video, a very sticky subject. Will you help unprepared families after a disaster? Or Shtf, or anarchy, or Shtf. But first, some relevant preparedness news, things that we need to take note of that can definitely influence your surroundings in South Africa. So the first is some Russian news. So it says here Russian Wagner troops exhaust Ukrainian forces. So we do know that the Russian forces are really gaining some ground, and they are using the town of Bakhmut as a meat grinder, busy destroying the Ukrainian military. The second piece of news is Kenya's crops fails after many years of drought. So they've been going through a big drought in Kenya, and many years ago the Kenyan government declared that using GMO seeds is illegal, which I do tend to agree with. But they're looking at introducing GMO seeds into Kenya again to try and combat the drought. Because if you understand anything about GMO, you can genetically modify to resist the drought or to be more drought tolerant. And then the next, quite an interesting one. Expert warns businesses to prepare for total blackout in South Africa. So you can take this with a grain of salt, or you can believe it. But we do know that the grid currently in South Africa is not doing well. I mean, on Thursday and Friday, we had 24 hours with no electricity. Okay, yes, we do have our backups, but you still need base power. You need coal base power, or at least gas base power, to actually run a business in South Africa. And then the next interesting piece of news: Eskom chairperson begs South Africans to install solar. So the main producer of electricity in South Africa is begging you to make alternative arrangements for electricity. Okay, so I quite like this, because you know what's happening? We are detaching ourselves from the central government in South Africa. So they're asking you to put up solar. So maybe for once we should listen to the African National Congress. They're so useless, they can't produce their own power or produce enough power for South Africa. So now they're asking you to actually start producing our own power, which is fantastic, because then we are not reliant on them anymore. And then the last piece of news, which is all about 15-minute cities that are quite a sticky situation in Europe, Australia, and I think Canada as well. I'm not sure about Canada. But what this basically entails, 15-minute cities, is that you're only allowed to drive X amount of hours per month, if I understand it correctly, with your car, and that they are trying to get you to walk to your local store and walk to work, and then maybe bicycle to work. And they will regulate you driving your car by installing cameras that will be catching you when you drive too much. So, yes, it almost sounds like the movie Hunger Games, where they've got blocks of people that are doing certain jobs, and you're only allowed to stay within that block. So, very interesting times. 15-minute cities are coming. And again, luckily for us in South Africa, our government is so useless that they will never ever be able to implement this in South Africa. So, God bless the ANC for being so corrupt and so useless. So coming back to this video, will you help unprepared families after a disaster? This is an extremely touchy subject, because all of us watching this video, and I even know people where the husband is busy preparing, but the wife is living in denial, or the other way around. And this is exactly the same with some of our personal family members that are not listening, and they are denying, and they are not preparing for a disaster. So let's jump into this sticky subject, and I want you to comment, because every area in the world, every family, every person is different. Okay, and you have to adjust according to what's happening in your life. Now, us in South Africa, our family, and this is how I see it, the guy making the video, my first responsibility is myself, my wife, and my kids. That is my first responsibility. My second responsibility then is my parents and my wife's parents, okay? And that is where my responsibility effectively stops. Now, I do know we all have family members that we dearly love. But they keep on denying it. It's like their eyes are totally closed. Now, I want to give you some advice today. The reason why people are living in denial is because of the fact that when it comes to the possibility of a country like South Africa collapsing, it is an extremely difficult thing to process. Okay? Bear with me for a second. So imagine yourself, you've worked your whole life or half of your life and you've accumulated a nice house, a nice stuff in the house, and suddenly somebody tells you, listen, bud, or brother or sister or mother or father or friend, there's a possibility that there's going to come a day where you're going to literally lose everything that you've worked for. Okay, and then a lot of people will say, well, I'll defend it. Or, no, it can never happen. And I've said this before, that South Africa is going into and has been in an extremely difficult phase the last 3 years since 2020 lockdown. And we can see the decline in the economy. We can see the decline in unemployment. We can see how poverty is gripping our nation. Okay, in our country. It is extremely difficult. The price of fuel going up, the price of food going up. An example, we've been going to the same supermarket every single week, and we can see that the shelves are empty. We can see that there's a lack either of production of products or the delivery of products. Now, I personally believe it is the production of products. There's something in the pipeline and the supply chain are not working so well, and we're seeing this. So it is for people extremely hard to acknowledge the fact that a possible collapse might happen in South Africa. Okay, to lose everything is not a nice thought. It's not something that you're going to wake up and be happy about. Okay, so let's come back to this video. Will you help unprepared families after a disaster? Okay, if you have family that you dearly love and you'd like to protect and look after, you as a prepper need to take that responsibility and prep for them as well. But look, it doesn't come for free. Prepping does take a lot of money. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes hours and hours of packing and repacking and storing away and looking after your prepared food and your stockpile. So yes, if you want to, you can prepare for other family members. But then when shit hits the fan, okay, they need to be actively involved in looking after everybody within your family. Okay, so everybody, you need to have a plan. You need to decide, we're going to prepare for maybe your brother or your sister or your parents, okay? And you've already got to have a plan in your head. What responsibility will each family member have? I want to tell you about something that happened in 2021 during the KZN riots. Okay, there was a group of preppers that assembled inside a house, and within 2 nights or 2 days, there was already ructions because some people came prepared and some people came unprepared. Okay, and then some people did not want to participate by helping with certain tasks, because obviously during a disaster every person needs to have a task. One person or one family cannot carry all of the weight to get alone. You need to spread it out so everybody can have something to do to keep them busy firstly, okay, and to contribute towards the situation. So I would say helping the unprepared, you'll have to think about it, because certain people are worth helping and other people are just fucking lazy and useless. Okay, so certain people you would want to help. So make a little list for yourself. The people that you know that are living in denial, but that can actually contribute towards you surviving a disaster or a shit hits the fan situation. So you know which people you are willing to help from the start, and you can start to prepare for them if possible. Remember, it is better to have a little bit than not to have anything at all. Okay, that is what preparedness are all about. Preparedness is about having a little bit in case something happens. Food, water, shelter, self-defense, medical aid stuff, first aid stuff, so that when disaster strikes, okay, you don't have to rush out to the stores to go and try and source whatever you need for your house or for your bug out strategy. Okay, it's all about preparing. So, the sticky situation. Should we help unprepared? I personally think yes, you can help those ones that you love, but having strangers knock at your door and helping them, you'll have to ask yourself the question, why did they not prepare? Why did they not see what is coming? Why are they living in denial? And then you'll have to ask yourself the hard question, am I able to look after and carry these people through a disaster? And what will they mean for our survival? So I know it sounds extremely selfish, but if you've spent years and years of preparedness like we have, and you've spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of skills, a lot of experience preparing, why then should you help people that are not willing to sacrifice the time, the money, the effort, the skills to prepare? But again, we are human. Sometimes there are people in our families that just do not see what's going on in the world. This is South African Prepper, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe. And God bless to all.